This conference will now be recorded.
All right, everybody hop in. So thanks again, everyone for joining us, and please hop in and speak up if you have any questions, want me to slow down, explain more, anything. But let's start looking at Monday.com. I use a separate Monday.com app. I like it this way. I tend to have like so many Chrome tabs open that it's really hard for me to find things sometimes. So things like Monday and chat, I have a standalone app that are just always open. But certainly I think most of you are using the URL through Chrome, and that definitely works. This works for me, but just want to throw it out as an option. I love this app, both on the PC and on my phone. And both it's great. Let's start by looking at notifications. And you guys can do this with me as well, follow along in your own, but you're gonna click on your icon down here and then go to settings somewhere. Oh, my profile should be the top one in the list. And then there's this notifications tab. And when we first launched Monday.com several years back, we didn't want to dictate, and still don't want to dictate how you receive Monday.com notifications. The key is just that you get them. And so mine is set up a little bit different from others, but we have a few options here: desktop notifications, email notifications, Slack doesn't apply to us, and then in Monday. So if you go with email notifications, which I think is almost everybody, make sure you have the right things checked here. You'll notice none of mine are checked because I use Monday.com. Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry. I had trouble getting my Monday open. Can you tell me, could you real quickly go back for me? I'm sorry.
Yes, actually, thank you for telling me to slow down. So this bottom left icon.
Okay.
Click on that and then my profile.
Ah, thank you. Okay.
And then we're on the notifications tab. It's the fifth one over. So you'll see none of my email notification boxes are checked because all of my Monday.com notifications are checked. So I'm getting notified in the app as opposed to emails. And again, it's entirely up to you which way you choose. The key is that you are responsive in Monday.com, whether that's via email or the notifications themselves. For sure, though, if you're using emails, make sure you have the assigns me to an item box checked, mentions me in a post or reply checked, writes an update on an item I'm the owner of. Those three for sure need to be checked. That's going to make sure you get notified, you get an email whenever someone mentions you, replies to you, or adds anything that you're the owner of. So those three are key. Nancy says she does email notifications. She has every box checked, which is not bad. Certainly not wrong. If you want to check them, I don't think even checking all of them, I don't think you'll be over notified. Any questions on notifications settings within Monday? Okay. Let's back out. Let's look at a board, and it doesn't matter which board. We'll do another kind of group activity here in a second, but just want to point out every single board. If you go up to the top and the three dots in the top right, click on board settings, and then create items via email. Every board has an email address that you can send an email to that will populate a new item on that board.
Brian, that is not, I can't do anything there. It only says change item in terminology that's black and everything else is gray.
Create items via email is where you are?
Under board settings,
Yes.
yeah, I don't have those.
Hmm.
Is
Does
it
anybody
just
else have?
for, I wonder if it's just boards they own.
Okay, let's give that a try then. Everybody go to your task board and let's see if that's the issue. So find your task board from the left side menu.
Task boards.
You can also search up here. It wouldn't show up for me, CCP, because I'm never been added to your task board. But if you search, imagine you have it.
Task board. So the templates come up. Template sites, staff, task board.
But you don't have one for yourself?
Apparently not.
Okay. Let's set up a time, either with me or Veronica, and we'll get you one set up.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. For now, though, is everybody else on their task board?
I think I don't have one either.
You don't have one either? Who was that? Sorry. Sean? No.
No, it's me, Gabby.
Gabby? Okay. I'll set up a time for both of y'all and we'll walk through creating one.
You want to walk through how to do it through the update bubble instead?
That was next. I wanted to show something different for this. So I just taken a note so don't forget.
I don't have a task board either, Brian.
Oh gosh.
So I'm going to give a plug here for task boards because it's like a virtual to-do list. But it's a to-do list that you can add items to, your CD could add items to, and that you can just easily communicate and mark things as like done. So instead of your CD emailing you emailing your CD and clogging up your email, this is a way to just say like done, or the CD says, I need this done, and then you add a comment that says done. So it's a pretty effective communication tool, and it's also pretty good to me, like virtual checklist or to-do list. So I'll just plug using the task board.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan also. You can see Nancy and I and Christian and I use it to plan meetings, things we want to talk about. I have it as my own to-do list with statuses saying what I need to work on, what's next. And like Nancy said, it's a to-do list, but it's also collaborative. So Nancy can hop in and see what I'm doing. Christian can hop in and see what I'm doing. John can say, do I need to work on this, or is Brian already working on it? And he can hop in and see. Yeah, it's super useful.
And I'm sorry, stand corrected. I do have one, Brian.
Oh, nice.
Brian,
I obviously don't use it.
A little late. You're talking about a personal task board, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So for everyone that does have one, let's go up to the three dots here. And board settings. And create items via email. And we can see we have this long, terrible email address with all these numbers and letters that's not super useful. So let's do something about that right now, make it a little bit more useful. So let's copy this address. And then we're going to open up Chrome. And we're going to go to contacts.google.com. Contacts.google.com. I dropped that link in the chat in case anybody needs it. So what we're going to do here is add a new contact for your board. And by doing that, we make it easier to send emails to the board. We don't have to remember or go back and copy that email address every time. So here in the top left is create contact. Is everybody here at this point? Okay. Let's do create contact and create a contact. And I'm going to put in here first name, Brian's task board. And then I'm going to paste the email address in here.
I'm sorry, Brian, I got interrupted. Can you go back to the contact again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I'm at contacts.google.com. I clicked create a contact up here on the top left. And then another little thing pops up and you just do create a contact again. Here, I'm going to put Brian's task board as the first name and paste that email address. So basically, I'm creating a contact in my address book. The name of that contact is Brian's task board. So instead of trying to remember this crazy email address, which actually isn't what it is anymore, instead of trying to remember that crazy monday.com email address, I can just send an email to Brian's task board and be done. So I'm gonna copy this again. I lost my, I copied something else in the meantime. And then click save. So again, just Brian's task board is the first name and then that email address. Click save. Now, whether you use Outlook or Gmail, you can create a new email or forward an existing email. I left this one in my inbox just for this example. Nancy sent me this document. She said, hey, can you help me with this? Can you review it? Can you add stuff? I'm going to add this to my task board. So I'm just going to take this email and I'm going to forward it. And again, who am I sending it to? I'm sending it to Brian. Oops, forgot a step in Outlook. I need to send receive. So now I'm going to forward it. To Brian's task board. Here's that email address. But again, I just typed in Brian's task board and it came up. So now if I send this and I go back to Monday, actually because it's Outlook, I send and receive again. Then here it shows up in my emailed items.
Hey, Brian, whenever you get a chance, can I ask a question? But
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be right this second.
No, fire away.
Okay, so you see how you have your tasks that you have to do? So I use monday.com and I have two separate boards. I have one for like my properties, and then I have one for me personally things for me to do, right? Things that I have to do. But let's just say that I'm on my property board and these are my tasks. Like you have an example of Nancy and Brian Thursday, right?
Yeah.
So if I have a task there and say I want to assign it to, say, Cecilia, is there a way to copy it and send it to Cecilia? Or would it be best to have her like Cecilia task board email and forward, or I don't know what the best way to do this is.
Yeah, so there's a few different ways. Do you want to keep a copy on your board and kind of copy it over? Okay, that's going to be something we can set up down the road. Not down the road. You and I can set it up, but it would take a little while to do here on this call. So
okay,
let's
I just wanted to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I can show you kind of an alternative that we do. we have this compliance projects board that's mainly Nancy, myself, and John. And so we have Nancy's active projects, John's active projects, Brian's active projects. So kind of all within one board where there's a lead and then a reviewer that's assigned. And then you can use the reviewer column to help say, hey, CCP, I need you to work on this. That would mean, though, giving access to that board to CCP and everyone else under you, right? So you just have to kind of be aware of everything you're putting on that board, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just was hoping for something, like you said, a little bit more private.
Yes, there definitely is. We just have to, we'll just have to set it up.
Yeah, like a one-on-one with that specific person.
Yep.
But we can talk about that later. I don't want to hog up the meeting.
No, you're good.
Sorry to interrupt, but before you continue, is this something that would have to be, whatchamacallit, that we all have to do, like mandatory?
No. Are you talking about the contacts and adding a contact for your board?
Just everything we're doing right now, because I'm sorry.
Do you mean like using Monday.com, Jasmine, altogether?
No, doing this to communicate with everybody else.
I think
No.
Monday.com is a great tool that we've had for a couple of years, and we should all start using it.
I'm just saying because I got lost. Can you go back to, I saved my contact and then I got lost completely. I don't know what else you did. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. You save your contacts. So now any email that you send, you can just send it to that task board, or that email address. So now, as long as you're sending it to that contact you just created, it will come to your task board.
Hey, you're on mute, Jasmine.
I said you sent it from Laserfiche? Is that what you did?
I sent it from Outlook, but it works with Gmail just the same.
I'll say conceptually, the idea on this is you guys get like hundreds of emails a day, and you might get 5 things from Crystal to do, or I send 2 things, or Michael says 3 things, or Sylvia sends something. And so that you don't lose that to-do item in your box, right? Because your box just gets filled. You can quickly forward it to your Monday board, and maybe you forward 5 things. And so now you know, okay, here's my list of 5 things that I got emailed to do today. And you can use that as like your point of reference. And you can even make it so you can message that says at Crystal, done, at Nancy, done. And it's real easy versus keeping it all in email. And then like and I know, Brian, you probably have to move on, but you can like prioritize things, you can assign things. So it could be a really good tool. Like you saw on our compliance board, there's 3 of us. We don't all want to be accidentally working on the same thing and tripping on each other. So we assign out who's working what the priority, is, and then who's going to be like the backup or the person double checking. So it's just if you've got a property thing and you're like, are you creating that TM? Am I creating the TM? Who's doing that eviction, AR, or who's, this? It can be just a good way to quickly see like your task list, or maybe your properties like task list that's coming in from all different directions, and then quickly communicate. You can just mark it done, and it tells everybody, okay, it's done, without having to send an email saying I completed all of this.
Yeah, and I'll I'll say a couple of things. So one, I'll echo what CC said earlier. I don't think we're using Monday to its full potential. I'd love to get there, but that's kind of a process thing. And the second thing I'll say is that I'm pretty sure as Nancy Gomez a couple managers meetings ago asked for a Monday.com refresher, and that is still in the works and is still happening. It just hasn't happened yet. And this, 1/3 of an hour is not meant to be that, but we will do that. It will come, and hopefully we'll get everybody feeling back to comfortable with Monday. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was, so not only does every board have an email address, but every item has an email address too. So on one of these testing ones that I just created, if I open this up, I can do write updates via email. If I click on that, then it allows me to copy copy the email address just specifically to this item. So before, when I was emailing, it was creating a new item. This would create an update on this item that already exists. And just like before, whether you're in Outlook or in Gmail, you can just email to that email address the update. Here you can see my update from the email that I just sent.
I'm sorry, Brian, I'm experiencing internet issues. You opened it up and you did what now?
So within the update for this individual item, I clicked on here, write updates via email. And that's going to give me an email address that I can copy that works as an update for this pulse. So now I can just send an email and it's going to go, whatever I type in that email is going to go here on this pulse that already exists.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Then along the lines of what we just said, more coming for Monday, I just wanted to show everybody else this dashboard that I helped Jasmine and Nancy create. And this has really all that they're responsible for. It's kind of putting everything in one place. So here, if they had any LIH service requests, they would be here. You can see their property monthly tasks. You can see open storm damage reports. We can see their audit boards. I'm gonna scroll past that really quick. We can see Yardi adjustment request, email tracking. So really all their Monday stuff is here in one place. And hopefully that's where we're getting to for everybody. But again, more info to come.
Hey, Brian, if someone is interested in creating something like that, can you help with that, or how do we do that?
I was actually going to get with you and the other CDs and ask you all to create the board. So just create the shell of it, and then add me as an owner. And then I'd be happy to work on them for each property.
Okay, sounds good. But you'll let us know when you're ready for that. Yes. Okay. And I really like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I liked it too. It was a great idea from Jasmine and Nancy and trying to get more organized with it. Any other Monday.com questions? Anything I can answer before we move on to Laserfiche stuff? Something that's been bugging you or not knowing how to do something?
One quick question.
Yeah.
So I have a task board. I don't have like the subcategories like what you have, like this. Well, I have like this is from John and this is from Brian. But if I'm sending a task email from someone that I don't already have like what a little subcategory set up for, where does it go? Or does it make a new one, or?
Can you show me a little bit what you're meaning? So kind of walk me through where
So go to your task board. So you got your Brian, Nancy Thursdays and Christian Brian Tuesdays. But say you have, then you have emailed items. So I don't have emailed items.
So when you email an item, the first time you email an item to the board, it will create a group called emailed items.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Does it have a default bucket that it creates?
Yes, it creates a default bucket. You can rename that default bucket, and it'll still go there. It's just like if you delete this group and create another group, and the next email you send, it's gonna create a new group anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, so first time you send it, it's gonna create a new group for you.
Gotcha.
And then all your emailed items from that moment forward will go to that same group.
So how did it know to send it to Nancy? Or did it?
It didn't to Nancy.
Because yeah, you sent yourself an email task that Nancy had emailed you. I think you deleted it out.
No, that was a real live one, I think. So it went to emailed items, and then I moved it to projects to be completed.
Okay, gotcha. So you moved it once it got in there.
I used emailed items as kind of a very temporary holding tank until I get it where it actually needs to go. If this was something that Nancy and I needed to talk about, I would move it up here to Nancy, Brian, and we'd talk about it next Thursday. But I know what needs to be done, so it just goes into my projects to be completed group.
Hey, Brian, just a note for later. Assigning it to another area of your board, because that's what I do. I use it as a temporary holding, so that might be something good to teach everybody later.
Okay, cool. Okay, we ready to move on to Laserfiche? Okay.
I'm sorry, Brian, it's Tanika. I have a question on how to remove the board, because I would like to clean up some of mine, and I have one for like Lauren, and she's no longer with us.
Yes, so if you are an owner on the board, I just cleaned up mine too, so there's nothing I can get rid of really at this point. If you're an owner on the board, you can either, I think it's up here. Yeah, go up here and click an X by your name. That takes you off of the board. I think you can do that whether you're an owner or a user, either way. You can also right click on a board and archive it. I think as a user, those are your two options. You yourself can leave, or you can archive the board. So in the case of someone, an assistant who's no longer with Haka, you can archive that board certainly, or you can just leave.
Okay, that worked. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is even a good board right here for y'all to see. So, at any point, at any given time, me, Brian, or anybody else who wants to know could go in here and see any unit that you have a special claim for vacancy loss and process that. We have who it's for, move out date, make ready date, number, cost. I know if it's gone to HUD. I know if HUD's approved it. I know if it's on a voucher. Any recurring task that you want to communicate easily with someone on and not require them to just constantly email you on, you can set up a board. So this is actually, Christian and I never ever email on special claims. I just go look at this board. And if I have a question, I can always add a comment in here.
Same for voucher tracking. We never have to ask Christian where a voucher is. We can just hop in and see exactly where everything is. All right, Laserfiche. So first, let me point out active files. Sorry if this is old news for a lot of you, but just to make sure we're all on the same page. So any certification that you're working on, any certification that's already been created in Laserfiche should have a shortcut into this active files folder. And then each of these different columns is based on the metadata of that certification, right? So if you did something, if this household, for example, came in for their interview and you need to change the status, you would go into metadata and you would change the status here, right? You'd put your notes, click OK, and that would be done. And you'll have a shortcut into your properties active files folder until the cert is either canceled, which actually I see some canceled in here. We need to figure that out, or finalized. If it's canceled or finalized, the shortcut should go away. Everything else needs to be actively worked on to one degree or another. If it's pending interview, really that's on the resident to set up and come in and schedule their interview. But within this active files, you can then sort alphabetically by name, which I could see being helpful. You could sort by status, so you can see what you need to get 7-day letters out on, for example. You can see which households are under eviction and whether that's still accurate or not. You can see the in-process certs and know what you need to work on. You can also sort by cert type, which can also be helpful. Here's all my annuals together. Here's all my AECs together. And then last modified can also be helpful. What's my oldest cert hanging out there that hasn't been doing anything? By creation date, what's the oldest cert I have? The cert I created longest ago. So any of these columns you can click on and sort by. Unit number, also a useful one, to know or to help you kind of figure out what you need to do, what you need to work on. So these columns up here, we have specifically added. And we can change these in any way we want. We can choose which columns, which information we want to see. And you do that by on this bar where all these column headers are, you would right click and we'll go down to template fields. And then most of what we want is either going to be LIH documents, which is what's going to apply to documents itself, right? Or LIH status, which is what's going to apply to the entire folder. So you can see things like file status or cert type. Whereas if I go to documents, I see things like description. So you can add and take away any of these headers that you want. This is how I like mine. Actually, this description I just added earlier today. I was showing Sandra how to do exactly this. And she likes having the description because it's going to tell you what all should be included within each doc shell. So income verifications, for example, may include work order report, Texas Workforce Commission report, paycheck stubs, etc. If I open the metadata on this document, I can get the full list here. We can also go, and again, we're going to right click and go down one more to load save columns. And I can save this setup exactly how I have it with these columns. I'm just going to call it new cert template. So now I've saved this as a view. I've saved these columns. So now if I get rid of something, and let's say I inadvertently or for whatever I'm doing, I get rid of file status. That's a really important one, right? I want to be able to see what that is. I can always just go back here and right click, load save columns, and load new cert template, and I see file status is back. So if you get one how you like it, I definitely say to go in, again, this is load, save columns, and save it. That way, anytime you can go back and kind of pull up that same view, those same columns at a later date. Questions on that? The other thing I want to point out is you can have two Laserfiches open. So if I go to File up here and do New Browser Window, it's going to create a second one. I'm only showing you all one monitor. You can see I have one Laserfiche here, one Laserfiche here. This is particularly useful for things like items to file, where I can pick out individual documents. This is for account 40. I can open account 40 over here and then drop these documents wherever they need to go.
I'm sorry, Brian. So we click on the file on those folders and it's going to automatically open another one?
You click on File up here at the top and New Browser Window. That gives you two Laserfiches, which you can put on two different monitors to help move things from one to the other.
So Brian, just to clarify, so you have it side by side here, because if I went to my items to file, you can drag it and drop it where it needs to go?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct. That would be, I think, what you guys would use this most for.
It was very helpful.
Yeah.
It's so much easier than scrolling up and down to try and file. You can just have your items to file open and just pull. I find it
just keep dropping it. Yeah.
Way easier.
Agreed. Thank you, Brian.
Another question we get a lot is when Laserfiche looks all wonky, like you get some new pane and you lose one that you are used to seeing. All of these panes are, this takes a little bit of setup, but I have most of the ones that I use up here in the toolbar. You can also get them from here, tools and I think it's just tools, options.
Yeah. We're trying to fix this last thing.
There we go. So here's a list of all the toolbar commands, and you can choose what to add. So here I have image. Oops, close that. Image that I can add back. So if you inadvertently close these, you can always get them back. You can move these around. You can see the metadata or not. There's a lot of options as far as what to choose. The only other one I use from time to time is the text pane, which this document isn't a great example. But like, for example, if I go into governing docs and I want to look at North Loops Laura, I can pull up the text pane. And so not only can I see the document, I can also see the text, which I can search. So if I'm looking for something specific, like in house rules or a tenant selection plan in Laserfiche, this is a great way to find it. Sometimes, like with recert letters, for example, you'll have a ton. I'm sure you all have something that applies to you, like recert letters applies to me. If I have like 300 pages of research letters and I know they're all 6 pages each, I can expand this so that I know each row is 1 letter. That way then I'm just going down one by one and I can see unit numbers. Does that make sense? If you scan in, say, what would be a good example? Nancy or?
Yeah, go into the 9 folder.
The not letters, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, pull up the knot. Each one is it's either 11 or 13 pages, I think.
My monitor isn't quite big enough. But if I scroll this way.
Oh, not even. It looks like it's 16.
16.
So
So
it's because the pages aren't removed yet. Yep, that's why.
Gotcha. So
There you
yeah,
go.
if I make it 16 pages long, then I know each row is 1 letter.
So we can search within this as well.
You can, yes.
Okay, can you show me that one more time? How do you search if you were to?
Yeah, how did you make it 16 pages long? Where are you making the changes?
I'm grabbing the edge and just making it bigger. I'm expanding it.
Okay.
Or making it smaller just so the window size is 16 pages.
Okay.
16 pages wide.
Okay.
Cool.
Can you show me how you search for it? Like I wanted to know if that was for account 28 from well, I got one here. Let me see. Account 3 in my not letters. Okay.
It's getting too big to
Okay.
to make work. Yeah, it keeps falling off the other side of my monitor. Just quite can't get there.
So that we're going to run into difficulties depending on the number of pages as far as the expansion of our screen.
For mine anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. What I mean, honestly, with something like that, I would use the Laserfiche search function. And this is getting a little complicated. I would look at file name within folder. And so it picked up the right folder. So it's searching only within this folder, and I'm asking it for anything, a document that includes 003003 is the one you said, right? Is account 3? Sorry, you're muted. I see none. Nothing found. You want to move on to Yardi? Any other Laserfiche specific questions?
I have one, Brian. I don't know if there's an answer to it, but copying and pasting, like say to an email, say somebody wants a copy of their lease. The only way I know how to do it is go to Laserfiche and saving it to my desktop and then attaching it from my desktop to the email. Is there an easier way?
There is.
I thought we were getting bugs on that where we couldn't drag over to emails yet, and not when Laura was here. But I didn't know they ever fixed it.
Nancy says they have, and I'm sorry, I don't use Gmail, so I'm not the best to ask. But yeah, from what I remember, it was fixed, and Nancy's saying the same. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure in either Outlook or Gmail, this is gonna be hard to show on one monitor, but let's give it a try. you can just drag it over as an attachment. So you can skip the entire step of saving it to your desktop and just drag it into an email. And that should, from what I remember, work with both Gmail and Outlook.
It works for Outlook, not for Gmail.
Not for Gmail?
I just did a test in Gmail and it worked.
Let me try.
And it didn't delete the original out of Laserfiche? Because that was the problem for a while. Okay.
It did not. That was that pretty lengthy fix that everyone had to do on their Gmail. I just tested it. I dragged over. There was only one 30-day not letter for Coronado, so I just dragged it into an email, and it's in there as a PDF, text 22, 30-day not, and it's still in Laserfiche. You just have to drag it over.
I shouldn't have picked a 114-page example.
Thank you.
Nancy's faster than me.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
No, that's a great question, because I think, Cece, maybe some folks were hesitant to do it because we did get stuff deleted when that didn't work well, and it's hard to recover. I just did a test of pulling over a whole file. I also did a test of, I opened a file and just pulled over like 2 pages, and both worked. So that can definitely save you some time.
Thank you.
Okay, and then just a few short, quick things in Yardi. So for one, up here in this search bar, you can search for functions. So if there's a specific report or function that you don't remember the name of, you can just start typing it here because it's right in front of me.
Oh, fudge.
I'm going to type voucher audit report, and it'll pull it up here. So I don't necessarily need to remember what menu it's on or sub menu. I can just start typing it and then click on that function here. And it takes me where I need to go. Since we're on menus, there is this star up here that's for favorites. So here I click on this down arrow and it shows me all of my favorites. So these are the things that I go to really often. It's not super useful for things that are one click away anyway, right? Like down here I have zero certs. I also have it here on the menu, but for any kind of sub menu things that are hard to find, you can add it to this favorites and then click on it and go to from here. How you add it is once you find what you're looking for on either the top menu or the side menu, you just right click and do add to favorite. Doing that will add it right up here. And I'll say this is menu specific. So I have these 5 things from my affordable role. If I go to roles, residential manager, I have a different list that's just residential correspondence. Same with if I go to roles and maintenance. So just like those roles are intended to be different functions, you'd have to set up each favorite on each individual role. And the other thing I'll show, and I think I show this like every time I'm doing some kind of intro to Voyager, mostly because I'm jealous. If you go to roles and residential manager, and then do, where are you? Administration is about 2/3 of the way down. And set default property. You can then put in your property and update. So now when you log into Voyager, that's the property that you'll see. When you initially log in, that's what it's going to default to. I really wish there was a way to do a property list here, but there is not, as far as I know. And then switching back to our affordable role, Nancy Gomez had this question the other day. I thought it was a really good one to add here. So if I look up person search 011064, go into current, I see here there is a 3122 AR1, but I can't see the original AR, right? If I go to data and then 5.9 history, I do still have access to that original AR. And this is the full list of their certifications. Just to kind of walk back a step, what happened here was once this termination was posted, everything that came after it was kind of hidden away. And Nancy still had to do this AR1. She still had to do this IR1. She had to do all these other new certs. But it made the originals kind of disappear from view. So this is how you would go back and find them again. And again, that is data and 5.9 history. This 5.9 certification stack is sort of the same idea, but with less options, although it looks a lot cleaner. So this is kind of the full history. And I see here these 3 retired certs, those would be the ones that were hidden. Those are the ones that are no longer showing on the main resident page. So if you think you lost a cert, or you can't find a cert, or you think you're going crazy, either 5.9 history or 5.9 certification stack is a good place to start.
So every time I feel like I'm going crazy, I just click that button and it'll be better. Just kidding.
Yep. It's like your own personal psychiatrist. It works wonders. It's the best button there is. All right, we got about 5 minutes left. Any other questions about this or anything else? Anything we can talk through or?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
So on Yardi, if say you have somebody that's lived in housing for 20 years, but they're a new resident to Bolden, and we want to know what their history has been for the last, 20 years of what properties they lived at, where can we find that? In Elite, we could know that. There's a place to go. And like for an original move-in date, I mean, there was like a date into admissions, and I don't know a place in Yardi.
Do you have, can you put in this property list of .all? Does it allow you to do that?
I think so.
So you can do that. You can also search by entity ID, but I'll caution you that that's going to be less and less reliable as we move forward. So in Elite, right, what would happen is a household was assigned an entity ID, that 6-digit number. And then regardless of where they went, even if they took a housing choice voucher, that number wouldn't change, right? In Yardi, though, it's set up a bit differently. And in Yardi, each household at each property is a unique number. So still, we sometimes, when someone transfers or when someone moves from one property to another, we'll add an A or a B or a C, whatever it takes, to the end of that 6-digit entity ID, so that they're still identifiable by that number. But as we're moving into using Yardi for wait lists, they're getting assigned a new number for every property that they apply to. So that's why I say you can search by their code here, But just because you don't get a new result at a different property doesn't mean that that's conclusive. You may have to just put this dot all in and search by name. Oops, it helps being spelled. And here I see 4 different Terry Barnetts of the kind of pass through Terry Barnett, but then I see their household at Lakeside, I see them at Rosewood, and I see them at Thurman.
That helps. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll say I'm pretty sure that your CD permissions gives you a broader range of who you can search for than the property staff. I think their permissions are just to their own communities.
Brian, I have a question. Is
Yeah.
there a way that we can get Yardi to print up the memos? Like sometimes if we want to send them to the attorneys, we can't get those to print there, and then they're really, really small if they do.
That's a good question. Unless Michael or Nancy knows off the top of your head, let me look into it and I'll get back to it.
Okay.
Ryan, there is a memo report, which I think will accomplish what Stephanie is looking for, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head how to get to that, but I know it exists.
Okay.
That would be good if we could get that, how to do that from everybody or for everybody to know, because we all face that problem.
I have a quick question, Brian.
Yeah.
And how do I do a search in Yardi for, let's say, the move outs I had in July? Is there a way to search my move outs by month?
Yeah. Effective in July?
Yes,
Yes.
for any month, but yes, let's do July.
So up here under analytics,
Mm-hmm.
and then compliance reports.
Okay.
Then this report type, I'm going to choose certification count. And then it's going to ask me a date range. So I'm going to put in 7/1/22 to 7/31/22 for Golden. And that gives me the number of certifications that were effective each month.
Mm-hmm.
If I click on move out, I get the list.
Thank you. That's what I've needed. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, there's a comment asking to go over how to set the default property one more time.
Yeah, so this is, if you go up to roles, you need to be in the residential manager role. And then about 2/3 of the way down, administration. And set default property. Then you just put in whatever property you want to default to and click update. Was that Melissa?
No, that was Monty. She's
Okay.
also at Tech 17.
Okay, cool. I saw M. I did want to ask y'all if it would be helpful. So yeah, Monsi and Tamika and Gabby, we have. So I'm gonna switch back to portable entire set. This was something that TMI would have to set up, but we have property lists like the .all, right, which is just all properties. Would it be helpful to have a property list for example, Lakeside and Salina, and then
Yeah,
one
that
for
would be good for me, because I have
Oh, you're muted again, Gabby.
I'm sorry.
Um,
I think I have Rosewood 2 and Santa Rita.
so you guys, so there's a couple different things. So one is your permissions are set to your community, so you can't see anyone outside of your community. But this would be like if you, instead of put in text 7, that's going to show you the move-ins, that people on notice, incompletes. That's only going to show you for Lakeside. You would have to do it separately for Santa Rita. But I think if we asked TMI to create a property list that was, you know, TX7/8, that would be able to give you both totals in all these columns. And the same thing would be true for text 17, 18, and 19. And then Tamika and Rosalind, same would be true for 16 and 22.
Okay, right. For mine, I'm having, like for my defaults, of course, I have all of the properties that are under CC, it appears. But I also have something that says DPT, well, it's for the LIH Central Office. And what the LIH inspections. Well, should I have access to all of those? Because every time go ahead.
So permission wise, yeah, each of you, so property managers and assistant managers, each of your permissions only allow you to see within your own community. So that if you need to cover or whatever, you have that access. But you shouldn't have access outside of. What I'm asking is a little bit different. Really, it only applies to those kind of 3 property groups. And it sounds like they're saying that would be helpful to be able to pull up 7, you know, they're either 2 or 3 properties all in one grouping.
And you may have said this, and forgive me if I missed it. You said that we are able to, I can default mine if that's one that I'm normally just working on text 3.
Yep.
Because each time I'm having, like, especially when I'm doing the check deposits, I'm having to go in and change my property each check that I do each time instead of just defaulting to text 3.
That may be a little different. Nancy's looking. So specifically to Voyager, you can do what we just did, which was within the property manager role.
Okay.
So make sure you're on residential manager on your roles. About 2/3 of the way down, administration.
Okay.
And then set default property.
Perfect. Okay. Yes.
And then you're going to put in text 3.
Okay, good.
So now when you log in, it's going to show text 3. And, you know, I mean, you can still change it after that, but at least when you log in, it's going to start with just text 3.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
We're a couple minutes over. Any other last minute questions? All right. Well, thanks, guys. We'll have a managers meeting coming up in a couple weeks, and then we'll do this again in a month.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.